In this video, I'm going to show you how to soundproof this lounge diner in this semi-detached house. The truth is, soundproofing is not straightforward, especially for a DIYer and you've not done it before. The thing is, if it was as straightforward as installing a soundproof wall system to these alcoves either side of the chimney stack, then most DIYers and builders would be able to solve their noisy neighbour problem, and 2/3 of people would not suffer from noise from neighbours. But it's not easy to reduce that neighbour noise in your home. There's a lot of unethical selling when it comes to reducing the noise in home, especially around the subject of noisy neighbours and trying to put a solution to that separating party wall. Now, I believe the main reason for this is because it's not only a highly emotional subject, it can be extremely stressful and infuriating to have that noisy neighbour problem. And a lot of people not only find it embarrassing to approach their neighbours to say, look, yeah, we've got a bit of a noise problem on the separating party wall. Some neighbours are just not approachable. Sometimes it's just not possible to have that conversation with your neighbours, and they avoid talking to their neighbours. They would rather spend thousands of pounds than having that conversation with their neighbours. Having personally suffered from noisy neighbours and solved the problem in my own home, I know how you must feel right now searching through YouTube looking for that quick fix, that quick solution. Well, I've found the solution and I'm going to walk you through it in this video. It's a method that massively reduces the noise in homes. I have used this method on my own home and achieved that soundproofing of a detached house. I then went on to soundproof thousands of other homes in the UK and help them achieve that as well. I openly share the methodology on this channel and in my book, The Noise Free Home, which is free, by the way. You can get a copy of that in the link down below. You might have to put your email address in as well. And I also share exactly how you do it and how you build our floating frame and treat all those flanking areas in the paid for courses, again, which you can find a link to in the description down below. But as you will see when I show you in this video how we go about soundproofing this lounge diner, it's not straightforward. It's not an easy problem to solve. And for some of you, when you see some of the pictures that I'm going to show you in this video, it might seem quite daunting for you. It might feel like a lot of work to open up that floor and open up that ceiling. And that's because noise in homes is a complicated problem and requires quite a complicated solution. But you can simplify it. You can break it down into a methodology, into bite-sized chunks, and you don't have to treat all of those noise paths all in one go. Now, don't get me wrong, you could take the edge off the noise. You could install a solution to the alcoves either side of the chimney stack, maybe treat the floor, and that will take the edge off. The noise will sound different. You will change the way that the sound is entering your room, but you will still hear those noise from neighbours. You'll still hear most of those noises that you hear. You might hear less of that TV, less of that conversation, but the noise will still come through and you will still feel unsettled. You will still feel uncomfortable and you will still feel like moving. By following the method that I'm going to show you in a minute, you will massively reduce the noise in your home and you will feel more comfortable in your home. You'll feel like you don't ever want to move. And that's what I've achieved for my own home and for thousands of other people across the UK. So let's get stuck into how do we soundproof this lounge diner. Let me show you how. Just to give you a bit of background on what sort of noises our homeowner is experiencing. They're hearing clear conversation, kids running around, that boom, 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 kids running around the floor, doors banging, general living noise. They haven't got an extreme noise of like pumping bass noise or dog barking or excessive music. It's a lot of general living noise. You can clearly hear the family singing nursery rhymes to the kids and the kids reacting. It feels like the family next door are in her own home, and you can record it on your phone. It's so clear. So that just gives you an idea of the noise problem that our homeowner is experiencing. Let's follow the 4-step soundproofing method and I'll tell you the result afterwards. Okay, so let's get stuck into how we soundproof this lounge diner. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to address the main causes of the noise. Now, what we mean by main cause, they are things that amplify the noise in your property, or things that it doesn't matter what soundproofing you do, doesn't matter how singing or dancing the wall system that you install to the alcoves either side of the chimney stack, the fire back and maybe the chimney stack, unless you address the main causes, the noise will still come through. And main causes, some people can have one main cause, some people can have like 5 main causes, and main causes could be an indirect noise path like a suspended floor. It's also an indirect noise path, but it's a main cause because because if you left it, it doesn't matter what you do, the noise will still come through on that suspended floor void that you've not treated. We've identified 3 main causes for this lounge diner. Number 1 is the RSJ here, this rolled steel joist, which is sat on that separating party wall. It's perpendicular and it's coming off of this brick pier here, coming all the way across. And the noise travels so easily through that steel, through that rolled steel joist. Not only is it noise traveling so easily through the steel, but it's the uninsulated void. It's like a hollow void. It's like one of those wind instruments when you blow through it. The noise is so loud when it transmits through that hollow void. So one thing we've got to do is we've got to sound deaden and insulate that RSJ. And not only is it transmitting noise across the whole of the ceiling above your head when you're sat in this lounge diner, it's also transmitting noise from this separating party wall up to the bedrooms above and to the rest of the house. So that's why that is a main cause. Another main cause is this hollow stud wall perpendicular. So this hollow stud wall perpendicular, it's like a drum, okay, and it's channeling the noise from the separating party wall out to the rest of the room. So this hollow stud wall, noise will resonate in that hollow void. We already know we've got a noise problem on the separating party wall, and that stud wall is like amplifying that noise. And that means it's a main cause, because it doesn't matter what soundproofing you do here, if you left that area, the noise is so pronounced on there, it's just amplifying the noise into the room. You're still going to hear all the noises that come through. That is why that's a main cause. Doesn't matter what soundproofing you do, unless you address this main cause, the noise will still come through. And the third main cause, which we've identified, is the suspended floor void. This hollow suspended floor void, because that area beneath the floor is still the separating party wall. Noise will come through, resonate in that suspended floor void. You've got a hard surface on the subfloor. It would resonate between the hard subfloor and the floorboards, creating a huge drum that we've got here. So what we need to do is we need to tuck the system down, insulate between the joist, which we'll show you later on. Okay, so that's step number 1 in the 4-step soundproofing method. You've got the RSJ, the hollow stud wall perpendicular, and the suspended floor void. All of those areas must be addressed, otherwise the noise will still come through, right? Okay, so next we're on the direct noise path, and this is what everybody is trying to sell you, a solution to those alcoves either side of the chimney stack. What a lot of people don't tell you or show you how to do, because they don't want to complicate the whole soundproofing installation, is the fire back. Remember, we had a gas fire here, so we have to disconnect the gas fire and we have to treat that fire back. Now we know if we leave a electrical socket, if you just cut a great big hole in the wall for a socket, that can let 3 to 5 decibels in, and we take all that time to seal up all the layers. Why would you take up all that time to seal up all the layers if you were just going to leave a great big hole in the wall for the fire back, which is still the separating party wall? So treat that fire back. Take the time to pull the fire out, pull the surround off, and treat that area, because that's a huge area where noise can come through, especially if the neighbours have removed their chimney stack. For a lot of you, you'll be thinking, why am I treating the chimney stack? There's such a lot of mass, a lot of dense brick, and you might have heard from other people that, oh, I just need to add mass to the wall. Well, just simply go to your chimney stack, if you have a chimney stack on the separating party wall, put your finger in one ear and put your ear on the chimney stack and listen. How much noise do you hear on there? A lot of mass, and your neighbours potentially have a chimney stack as well, so it's a lot of mass, but the noise is still coming through, and it's not just resonating in that chimney stack flue that you have on the chimney stack. It's coming through the structure of the building. It's coming through that brickwork. It can transmit more easily through that brick and block work than it can me or you talking in the garden. So it needs to be sound deadened, which you hear me say all the time. We're applying a viscoelastic membrane or a rubber to sound deaden it, like when you put your hand on the ringing drum cymbal. And you also need to add a resilient layer. And for this, we're going to use a DBX board, which is a sandboard product, and that's going to act as our resilient layer, which I'll show you later on in the video. Here we're going to sound deaden the wall. We're going to install a floating frame to the alcoves, either side of the chimney stack, and this section here. But a lot of people forget this area above the ceiling. So this has plasterboard on it at the moment, and we've cut open the plasterboard to get to those areas between the joists, because that area above the ceiling is still the direct noise path, and that area below the floor is still the direct noise path. Floorboards and carpet don't offer much sound attenuation, and the same as plasterboard on the ceiling doesn't offer much sound attenuation. Not only that, your neighbours will have a similar ceiling to this, and their noise is hitting that ceiling. It's resonating in those channels between the joists, because the channels where the joists are running into the separating party wall, they're creating those channels, and noise is just hitting those areas. There's such a weak spot. That's why the system has to be tucked up, cut around the joists. And yes, that is a lot of work. Cutting open the ceiling and tucking the system up all along there and tucking the system down, that's probably 80% of the work. Now we're looking at step number 3 in the 4-step soundproofing method, the indirect noise path. This is the area which is so important. This is the difference between you soundproofing or moving. This is the difference between you hearing your neighbours or not. It's the bit that everybody skips. One of the indirect noise paths is this window wall. And this is because when I went round to speak to this homeowner and I asked, put your ear on the wall, finger in one ear, put your ear on the wall, she actually heard the noise clearly on this window wall. The noise is transmitting from the separating party wall through the structure onto this window wall. I invite you to do this in your own home. If you have a window wall like this and you're suffering from noisy neighbours, finger in the ear, put your ear on the window wall, not only close to the separating party wall, because I know you will hear it there, but furthest away and underneath as well. And if you do hear the noise, then consider treatment. And here we've put a TPS 65, which I'll go through in a second. The next indirect noise path is the ceiling. Adding that mass to the ceiling, that noise is transmitting through the joists, and adding that mass to the ceiling will reflect your noise back into the room, giving you your privacy. If you want to watch a film, play music, have gatherings of people and not worry about your noise going next door, then it's a good idea to go over the ceiling with a heavy duty board like a Soundblock 15. That's a heavy duty drywall for those of you in the US or Canada, and that will reflect your noise back into the room. Okay, so I've already mentioned the suspended floor void as a main cause, but insulating between the joists and sound deadening the existing floorboards would be another example of treating the floor, which is the floor is an indirect noise path. Okay, so we've done the ceiling, so we've got to do the floor as well. So your indirect noise paths would be the window wall, the ceiling and the floor. And now we're on to the fixtures and fittings. We're going to do a complete plaster finish, refit the skirting, the dado rail, the gas fire, refit the carpet, the architrave, extend the door linings, the windowsill, all put back in a way that doesn't compromise the soundproofing. Fixtures and fittings are such a key part to any soundproofing solution. You'd be amazed at how many people install a good soundproofing solution to their direct noise path. They treat some of the indirect noise paths as well, but then they cut a great big hole in the wall for the socket, or they use acoustic putty, which doesn't offer much sound attenuation. You've got to take this fixtures and fittings into consideration before you start your soundproofing. You've got to incorporate them in the design phase, and that's why fixtures and fittings is probably one of the biggest modules in the noise-free DIY soundproofing course, is because we don't want people to compromise their new soundproofing. So what is that all-important soundproofing result? Well, as you can expect from this amount of sound insulation, the homeowner doesn't hear much noise anymore. A lot of that airborne noise, that kids screeching, family next door making noise, all those sorts of noises just not audible anymore. Some of the clonks and clangs of kids running around, doors banging, that's still going to come through. And if you're sat in the silence reading, that noise is going to come through, but it's going to sound more distant, and you're unsure whether you hear that out the window or not. That's what this level of sound insulation is going to do. On the packet, we would say a good 80% reduction on airborne noise, 65% on the impact noise. Yes, you can get a bit more by joist disconnecting the joist and running the system all the way down, so there is nothing connected to that separating party wall. But our homeowner wanted to do the maximum they can in the space and budget available. They wanted to future-proof their property, so if any new homeowners moved in next door and they had like barking dogs or music, we're not going to hear that noise that come through with this amount of soundproofing. A lot of people ask in the comments, how much does it cost? Well, it varies massively, which is why it's very difficult to give a price for that. And yeah, I would love to just give you a price. If you want us to do it, for example, if you want quiet co-insulation experience, then it's going to be over 25k to do this level of work. But if you're going to do it yourself as a DIYer, you could probably do it for less than £5,000. Okay, so it varies on how you go about doing this installation. what we say for the noise-free DIY soundproofing course is do the course all the way through, go all the way through the course, which might take you a few weeks, and then put a plan of action together and treat the areas that you want to treat after you've learned what to do in the course. And then with the materials calculation tool, you can calculate what materials you need and therefore calculate how much it's going to cost. I hope you found this video useful. I hope it's given you some inspiration to maybe soundproof your own home if you have a noise problem. Remember to check out the description for all those useful links and get yourself a copy of the Noise-Free Home if you haven't done so already. Please give us a little like and a share maybe, or drop us a comment with any questions. Let us know you're enjoying the content. That would be most helpful, and I'll see you on the next video.